Okay, and we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome, 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 wherever you're joining from. Great to have you with us. Thank you for coming back. We launched the Book Doctor sessions again last month, and it was great to have you with us if you joined, and if not, welcome. Welcome to your first. While we're waiting to get started, while we're giving everyone a few minutes to come in, please the usual ritual will be great. Add your name and where you're joining from in the chat, just so we can see everything's working okay. And I can give a few shout outs, whatever you like to say. There we go. And the first one's from Holger, a regular attendee. Hi, Holger, from Amersham in the UK. Thanks, Trey. Thanks, Rudy. Thanks, Scott. Diana from Seattle. There we go. Rob from Ottawa. Great. Fantastic. Roberta from, I think that was Texas. Hi, Amanda in Somerset. Scott from Deathridge, Michael from Dallas, Karen from Switzerland. Great to have you with us. I hope this is as fun for all of you watching as it is me. I love seeing where everyone's joining from. Holly from Colorado. Oh, my daughter's called Holly. I love that name. Hello from West Texas. Hi there. And Hertfordshire, Northamptonshire. Well, it's quite a UK contingent. That's wonderful. Hi, Dave from Alabama. Welcome, 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 everybody. So great to have you with us. It really is a privilege to do these sessions and be joined by Sally, as usual, which is also a privilege and very lovely to do. We are, as usual, we're going to be running for about an hour today, 50 minutes to an hour. I'm going to walk through a little bit of kind of housekeeping at the very beginning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up. We've got a couple of exciting events coming up. And we'll talk a little bit about the kind of do's and don'ts, how we'd like you to be involved in tonight's session or this afternoon session, wherever you are. Yeah, and then we'll get straight into it. And this month's subject is pension, which is going to be really exciting. So, and thanks for those who are still adding their names. Hi, Eva. Oh, close to Amersham too. Maybe you know Holger. Yeah, thanks to those who are still adding their names and locations in the chat. Keep going with those. Wonderful to see. But let's get on to some interesting news about what's coming up at Pro Writing Aid. And the first thing I want to share with you is an event we're running next week. So Story Garden is a brand new event. Some of you may have heard about it. We are putting it out there on our social channels a little bit, but it's basically a 4-day online summit with some of our partners in the world of creative writing. So we're partnering with Fictionary, Plotter, and Drafter Digital, and we've got a bunch of special guests coming along too. In fact, probably the best thing for me to do is share my screen. Those of you who are actually watching on the screen will hopefully be able to see this. Just give me a second. So Story Garden, and I'll post a link to this at the moment. Story Garden is, like I said, it's a 4-day summit, how to take your idea and nurture it just from the initial kernel of an idea, initial seed of an idea through to its germination and the point at which it's flourishing. So visit the page, sign up. We've got 4 days of really interesting talks. Day 1 focuses on taking your idea to an outline. Day 2 is where Pro Writing Aid will be represented, talking you through story editing and copy editing. We're working with Fictionary on that one. Day 3, how to prepare to publish. And then we've got a bonus day, which is all about promotion and selling. Again, I'll post this link in a second, but you'll see the outline and some of the amazing speakers we've got joining us. I'm sure some of you be familiar with companies like Reedsy, Pages and Platform. We've got our great friends from, gosh, the name's, Written Word Media. That's right. Those guys are doing a session on how to run an effective price promotion. And we've got some great individual speakers too. So it has got a $5 minimum fee, but it's on a pay what you can or pay what you want model. So feel free to pay what you can if you're interested. Hopefully some of you will be, and I really look forward to seeing some of you there. I'm just going to stop sharing. and I will share that link in chat. There you go. You'll also see in chat a link to our community. So if you're not already a member of the community, please do join. It's totally free. Pro Writing Aid community is totally free. All of these events we talk about are posted in our community, along with other questions and forums as well. And then the final thing I wanted to tell you about was Fantasy Week, which is fast coming up too. So Fantasy Week, we ran Romance Week in February. I know many of you joined us for that. Appreciate you joining us. In April 22nd to 26th, we are running Fantasy Week, and you see a link to Fantasy Week, and I can see Natalie is already excited about that. Looking forward to seeing you there, Natalie. Like Romance Week, it's I think 4 or possibly 5 days of great sessions. It's almost all of it is free for either free users or premium users of Pro Writing Aid. We will be publishing details of all the speakers in the next week or two. It's our most popular Writers Week of the year, and if you're not there, you're missing out. Please do sign up. It's free to sign up, and once you've signed up, you can have access to all of the recordings. I think, by the way, I forgot to mention the dates of Story Garden. They are 19th to the 22nd of March, so sorry about that. Linda, are we planning a mystery week? We don't have one scheduled at the moment. I think we've got 4 weeks planned, so I can just see. You don't see the link. Sorry. Thanks for pointing it out. I've got the wrong setting on. There we go, everyone. There are the links going. Hopefully you can now see all of the links. And yes, and so we've got Story Garden is 19th to 22nd of March. Fantasy Week is 22nd to the 26th of March. Okay, back to tonight. Now, we love that these sessions are interactive. I know I make this point every time, but I'm going to make it once again. Please, if you've got questions for me to put to Sally, please use the Q&A. Unless you're asking that question to everybody in our network here tonight or today. So please use chat if you just want to have a conversation, and we love the back channel chat that goes on. But if you wanted me to post a question, Sally, please use the Q&A. I can just see that someone asked, you haven't seen the link for Story Garden. It's the first link of the ones I've posted. It's actually the landing page is hosted on Plotter's website, which is why it'll look confusing. I'll post it for you once more. There you go. So I know it's a Plotter website address, but that will take you through to Story Garden and where you can sign up. Okay, so yes, please use the Q&A box if you've got a question you'd like me to put to Sally. As I've mentioned before, you're welcome to post questions or email us with questions afterwards. Just use hello@prowritingaid.com, HELLO@prowritingaid.com. And final point, and again, I know I made this last month, but we love you to be involved. So if you have ideas for future topics, please let us know what you would like us to cover. If you're welcome again to post those in Q&A, email me after the show, however you'd like to. But we have a discussion every month, Sally and I, about what subjects we're going to cover, and we love that to be guided by you. Okay, I think that's all the preamble done. Are we ready, Sally?
Ready as we'll ever be.
Right, so welcome everybody. Welcome once again to our monthly Ask a Book Doctor session. And as you know, today rather, we're talking about tension. And Sally, how important is it to get tension right? So we're talking top 5. Is this one of the most important points to get right?
It is indeed one of the top 5. Hello, everyone, by the way. It is one of the top 5, and or 6 or 7. We talk about the top 5 as if I could, but the thing is with all the top 5, so you would have, characterization and plot and structure and dialogue and tension, pacing and tension. Possibly some people would see as a bit interchangeable, but it's not. You can get all the others right with any of these sort of top 5 or 6 issues, but if one of them's falling, then your book won't work yet. You have to get it right. And so tension is very often the last, I can get a manuscript that is a very good manuscript, and I can see that it's even, it's possibly a viable manuscript. It's possibly got, one that I will say to people, I think you should send this out to agents. I think this is a good book. But the tension isn't quite there. And until the tension is there, it's not going to work. And so we're going to talk about what it is even, and how to, I could have said we're going to talk about, but I won't. That would be silly.
So, so the question is, how do you identify when there isn't, from your perspective, Sal? How do you know? How do you tell there's not enough tension?
Tension is the thing that it's sort of the glue that sort of, it's like a chameleon's tongue that sort of shoots out and catches your reader at the beginning of the book and then pulls them through the rest of the story. That's disgusting. Forget I said that. But tension is page turnability, basically. Tension is the thing that makes you think, somebody's calling me to dinner, but I'll just finish this chapter, and an extra page, I should go to sleep. I'm falling asleep, but I'll just finish this chapter. Well, maybe another chapter. That's tension that's making you do that. It's the thing that makes you want to turn the page. It's the thing that makes you want to read on. It's the thing that makes you care about your characters, because anything can be happening in your book. But if we're not emotionally invested in your characters, or at least if we don't care about your characters, we're not going to, sort of, somebody could say, come to dinner, and we're like, yeah, sure, I'll come to dinner, not a problem. So it's your glue. It's what keeps you being pulled through the story.
And how do you recognize it as, I get how you can recognize it when you're reviewing and working on a manuscript with a writer, but it's somewhat more difficult to do sometimes, isn't it, when you're looking at your own body of work?
When you're looking at your own work, we were talking about this, weren't we? It is hard. It is very hard, because, and for a number of extremely valid reasons, it's difficult to recognize if tension is lacking. And we were also talking about, really, if this is the one problem with your book, people might talk about pacing, and it might not exactly be pacing, it might be tension. And there's a terribly subtle difference, but pacing can be fixed often by cutting, often by trimming, often by, you just need to keep things snapping along. Tension is subtly different. But so people might say to you, I think the pacing isn't quite right. But what we were discussing was that the only way you're probably going to know is feedback from your beta readers, or from whoever, your friend or whoever you give it to read. And the second problem with that is that people aren't always honest, and they say your book was great, because they don't know what else they're either hypercritical, or they don't really know, they don't want to upset you or hurt you. So if you're very lucky, in a strange way, if somebody says, I just couldn't really care about your main character, or with all of it was really great, but I somehow wasn't really hooked, that's tension. That's tension. So if people are giving you that kind of feedback, that's what tension is. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But it is difficult to spot on your own.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And
but sorry, we're going to go through a checklist. So if you keep this checklist in mind, I've gone completely out of focus.
Your camera doesn't like autofocus today, does it?
No, hang on a minute. I'll go away and come back. Hang on.
It's just to add to the tension.
Hi. We're going to go through this checklist, and if you have this checklist and think about it, you should be able to fix it yourself. That's the aim of what we're going to do today.
Yeah. Okay.
Sally OJ's General Guide to Tension.
I like that. I like that. So yeah, so it's closely interwoven or aligned with pacing, and we're going to be covering that as well. But should we dive straight into the checklist then?
Yeah,
And take a look.
yeah.
Okay, so what is number one? What's the top thing on the checklist?
I'll have a look. Even though I wrote it, I shall have a look. So, readers have got to be invested in your characters.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. Anything, as I said just now, anything can be happening to your characters. They could be falling into fiery pits. They could be wrestling in jello. They could be in a terrible love triangle. Anything could be happening. Unless your reader cares about them, one way or another, your reader could hate them. That's
Yeah.
good. That'll keep them turning the pages. Well, I mean, in a certain sense. But unless your reader is invested in your characters, they're not going to care, and they're not going to care what happens to them. And I gave you an example, didn't I, when I have to do it without the swearing, that a friend of mine once, years and years ago, decided in her late 20s to read Lord of the Rings. And I said to her, how are you? I really am going to have to be careful not to swear because that's always. And after a while, I said, "Oh, did you read Lord of the Rings? What did you think?" And she said, "I tell you what, Sally, I nearly finished it, and then I realized I didn't give a damn what happened to Frodo,
Right.
son of Drogo, and I stopped reading it." And I think they'd got to Mordor, so she just suddenly thought, "I don't care what happens to him." Now, clearly, this is not a problem that most people have with Tolkien, but it's always stuck in my mind
Yes.
that she just suddenly didn't care and she stopped reading, and this is perhaps not on its own enough to make you stop reading if you feel that there are other things that you're invested in the book, but it's absolutely a crucial thing. If readers don't care about your characters,
And
you've
we've all,
you've
I mean,
almost lost them.
yeah, and I'm sure everyone here's, had a time when they've read a book. I certainly have, where I just felt, do you know what? It's just that I haven't. If I'm not reaching for that book in any spare moment, then I know I'm kind of
Yeah,
really
yeah,
invested in it. And there are definitely times when I felt I really have that with characters. I'm just not
yeah.
getting them or invested in them. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. And it doesn't always. I mean, we're getting some questions around kind of creating tension without conflict and whether that's possible. But to my mind, I mean, it's something maybe to come into in a bit more detail. But to my mind, it's not always related directly to conflict. There's more to it than that. Is that right?
There is more to it. I mean, conflict is terribly important.
Yeah.
One of the things that's got to be to create tension, there has to be conflict and there has to be struggle. And this we've all seen the journey that your characters go. Freytag's pyramid, it goes like this, and this is the sort of the rising tension, and then there's the climax, and then there's a falling action. But if your readers just have a sunny, not your readers, I want you all to have sunny times. If your characters just have a sunny sort of glide through the story, there's no interest in that at
Right.
all. There's a phrase I always use, which frankly I made up, and I'm very proud of it, which is there's got to be grit in the oyster of your story, or you're not going to get your pearl. There's got to be
Right.
something that they're conflicted about, that they're struggling against, even if it's just internal conflict, and that's very good. I don't like jargon very much, but what they call person against self. If they're an alcoholic and nobody knows, or if they've got an illness or nobody knows, or if they've got some kind of all time constraint. It could be a bomb's about to go off, but it could also be, if I don't get to that wedding on time, no one's going to speak to me ever again, or whatever. But some kind of tension, some kind of conflict, some kind of struggle is really important, because otherwise, instead of doing this, your character is flatlining,
Yes.
just doing that. And so we really need that grit in the oyster. Trademark Sally OJ. We really, really do need that. It's very important.
That inner conflict point's a really good one, actually. And I was telling you
Mm.
recently that I finished reading a book which I just loved, A Month in the Country. And
Oh yeah.
there's some internal conflict going on there, which just, oh, you're willing for you're willing for things to happen, and that makes
Mm.
that kind of gives tension and you makes you want to keep reading all the time. Yeah, I devoured that book. Okay, so questions are building up, but I want to keep going through the checklist if we can. So
Okay. So
invested characters.
talking about your characters flatlining,
Yes.
you don't want that. You also do not want your plot to flatline. Now, we all know, everyone here knows about structure, and everyone knows here you need a story arc and you need certain points on your story arc and all that. You all know this. But let's be frank, a little bit twisting, a little bit of turning, that's always good in a story, because who doesn't like getting to a point in a story and going, I did not see that coming. I've given myself, I'm choking with the excitement. So what I don't mean, obviously, if you're writing a thriller, you know there's going to be twists and turns. I think I better do something about this.
While you do that, Sal, sorry, I just want to mention something that Saskia has mentioned, that she's worked through her way through books just to see if something would eventually happen, and it didn't. And I've done that myself. You don't want something to fail, though, do you? You don't want something to not be a success. So you're willing that tension, but it can be really disappointing where it doesn't happen for you.
Yes, and I think this is what happened with my friend with
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so sorry, with Lord of the Rings, and then she gave up. So twists and turns. Obviously, if you're writing a thriller, you're just going to have to take me with my new voice now. That's just the way it's going to have to be. Then, of course, you know you want twists and turns. But if for those of you out there who have read Fingersmith, do not tell anyone else what happens. Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, one of the best twists in literature, I think. And if anyone starts to read Fingersmith, I say, for God's sake, don't let anyone say, oh, have you got to the bit where, no. But, you know, that's not a thriller. That's not a thriller at all. It's quite a quiet book in many ways, but my God, has it got a twist in it. So it doesn't have to be big dramatic things. It doesn't have to be, it's just good to have something a bit unexpected happen, or a bit like, you just want to go, even if you're not going, I didn't see that coming, even if you're going, huh, you know, just to keep things moving and shaking up a bit. So it's like I said before, if you're putting them under some kind of pressure, the time limit, the secret they fear coming up, you know, if in sort of at the end of the first act, you suddenly realize that what you thought was true isn't true, and they've got a secret, and you know, this kind of thing. It doesn't have to be huge plotting. It can be, you know, you can already have that secret in the book. You can know. It's a case of when to reveal is often a very good point with tension. You know, I've got this, it's already in the book, but maybe if I dropped it here or saved it till there, maybe that would be more exciting. And it is about adrenaline and excitement. Turn me the page, turn me the page, turn me the page.
Yeah.
So if you end not to end every chapter on a cliffhanger, because that can get a bit wearing. But if you end the odd chapter on a cliffhanger, you know, then somebody's going to want to read the next chapter very quickly.
So we're getting a lot of requests, and thank you everybody who's asked for a copy of the checklist. I don't think the checklist exists in a fully physical.
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. It's just in my head. I'm sorry, but we will go. I mean, by all means, note it down from what we're talking about, of course.
Okay. So let's just reiterate. We started with being invested in characters, and we've talked about you talked about getting a sense of what characters are struggling against.
Yeah.
So that's related to their conflict, whether that's internal or external.
Twists and turns.
Twists and turns.
And we said it's always good to have a character under some kind of pressure, or have a secret, or some kind of time limit. Not those literal things. I mean, yes, those literal things, but it can be any kind of thing that maybe the reader knows about or suddenly finds out about, that the other characters don't know about. And I'm sure, you know, people can put 100 examples of this kind of thing into chat in books. Does not have to be huge. like I said, it does not have to be huge moments like Fingersmith but just like I said, just so your reader thinks, huh, okay, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? That's what tension is. What's going to happen now? It's the thing it's that chameleon tongue. Disgusting again, but it pulls you through, and that's what you want it to do. So
I'm just right. I'm gonna dive in here because my little story here is that you recommended Fingersmith to me about, I don't know, 10 years, God knows how many years ago. And
when we were both children, in fact.
yeah, and I didn't know it had this moment, and it is just a
Text I
phenomenal.
got from you, I thought you'd had a heart attack.
Well, that's it. And I just, because I knew something, the sentence before it happened, I could see what was happening. And it wasn't till that point. It so blindsided me. I've never had another book do that to me. I'd love to hear from those who are with us today of
But
what.
don't give it away.
No, I don't want to hear that. Absolutely. I want to hear other stories that you love
Oh,
for
yeah.
having built that dramatic tension or actually having a twist that you just didn't see until the very, very last minute. Because that's what Fingersmith was for me. My goodness. It even now it kind of makes me I
Well,
recommend that to everybody.
oh, it makes me so happy. But imagine when I first read it.
Yeah.
um, but um, but even something like Reader, I Married Him. That's going to keep me reading, isn't it? It doesn't have to be a huge, great thing. It can just be a well-placed moment.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to think, oh God, I'm going to have to start writing cliffhangers all the time. No, you're not. It's just what I just said, and I can't remember what I said now when I said that's tension. That's what it is. It's what happens next. Yes, that's it. So it can be a very quiet story, but you still want to know what happens next, don't you? You want to
Yeah.
know if she finds the pearls or whatever. You want to
Yeah.
know if if she's going to find who desecrated her garden or whatever. It can be a very, very quiet little story, but you want to know. So you have to set up, it's like a book. Generally, you need to set up questions all the time and let your reader chase after those questions. It's very good.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I quite like short, gentle novels sometimes, but I don't
Mm.
realize necessarily until I'm thinking about it that actually there even in those there is that tension that comes from something unresolved, for example.
Absolutely. And the thing is you don't want Chekhov's gun where you just leave something unresolved until the end of the book, but you do want if you've got something's unresolved, that it's quite a delicate balance with something like that, because after a while your reader's going to just flick through to see what happened. So you've got, or at least if they're like me, they are. But that's okay as long as the answer comes. But it's all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't have to be dramatic cliffhangers, although they're good. Depends on what kind of book it is. Agents are things go in phases, and agents
Yes.
certainly a couple of years ago were saying to me, it's a very quiet, I like it, but it's very quiet, but we're not really looking for such quiet books at the moment. And I mean, fair enough, but people love quiet books. People love reading quiet books. And if you're writing a quiet book, that is fine. Don't be put off. But you don't have to have somebody jumping out of a helicopter in your quiet book to
Yes.
cause tension. There's an awful lot of things. And I mean, actually Jane Eyre's a very good example.
I,
Um,
I just want to give a little shout out. I want to thank Harry, Cherry, and there are some others here as well. Oh, there was another one I can't. From Tom as well. For your recommendations of books, I'm going to pick up some of those and have a
oh,
read.
brilliant. That's
Because
brilliant.
yeah, I love the idea of. I've not read any of those that you've suggested, so thank you very much. Um,
I did just want to say, I like my quotes. It's not actually Chekhov for a change. It's Oscar Wilde, who very famously said, "The suspense is terrible. I hope it lasts."
yes,
This is the kind of thing you can be aiming for. But again, I don't want people to think, well, I've written you know, I've written a book about somebody who's decided to walk, you know, from John O'Groats to Land's End. You know, it's about what he goes through, how he grows. You know, there's what suspense. Well, there is suspense, even if he's like, oh God, I've dropped my food. How am I going to find somewhere to sleep tonight? You know, there's always suspense. You want to read on, you want to think, what's going to happen to him tomorrow? You know,
Yes.
that was great what happened today. What's going to happen tomorrow? You know, so it doesn't have to, I must really stress this. It doesn't have to be big. I know I've repeated it, but it's all right when I repeat things. It doesn't have to be big, exciting blockbuster stuff, though naturally that does need tension. It can be any book, and it has to be in any book, in fact.
Okay.
And the other thing, sorry, Tom.
No, go for it.
Well, the other thing is you have to talking big blockbusters. You know, if you start with a huge bang, like a lot of blockbusters do, if you have written a thriller or something, then it'll just keep going from there. There's this big bang and it keeps rolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you haven't written a thriller, for example, if you've written a novel about, you know, fly fishing in Sweden, then and it starts with somebody falling into a lake and being eaten by a shark, and there's blood and everything's happening. There aren't sharks in the Swedish lakes, just saying. But then you've got to keep you have to sort of keep that going, that kind of tension. So if you start with a huge bang, and then he's back sitting by the river, it's your reader gets a bit confused. What happened? All my adrenaline. So it's better to try and build tension gradually. But that's, you know, that's
Okay.
something to work out with an editor. Really, it's not something for you to stress about.
Okay. I'm going to just run through a few kind of I've noted down a few kind of bullet points here, which
Yeah, thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
no, this is all part of the service. But must be invested in characters, get a sense of what the characters are struggling against. Again, that can be internal, that can be external, that kind of conflict. Twists and turns, pressure, secret, time. I acknowledge some of these are interrelated. I'm kind of a bit of repetition here, but pressure, secret, time limits, conflict, something unresolved, build tension gradually. Yes, and sorry, something else we mentioned from our conversation the other day, Sal, was about not overdoing it, and that's important, right? So that's as
you need breathers,
recognizing
absolutely,
that it's missing in the first place.
Yeah, and those moments of I did not see that coming are only going to work if you have moments of calm. Because if it's all going like that, then when you did see it coming, you know something is going to happen. So moments of calm in your story, chapters of calm in your story, that's okay. I mean, calm, you want something happening, you want things moving forward, but it doesn't have to be constant. In a way, it's better if it's not constant, because then when it does happen, but what you do need to be constant is this sense of what's going to happen next. What's going on? What page 10 ability? What's going to happen? I want to read on. Can't come to dinner. I'm reading my book. That's what you. That's what you want.
I can't. I'm still waiting for the moment when my children called out from their bedroom saying, "I can't, I can't come for dinner because I can't. I've got to finish this chapter." It's never happened with them yet. One day. Joe, thanks for your recommendation, Marathon Man. I totally agree.
Oh God, yeah.
Definitely.
Do you know what? Talking of Marathon Man, I always keep a bottle of clove oil. That's a little Marathon Man in joke, but you know, useful to know.
Absolutely. I think we should probably dive into some questions, Sal, if that's
Let's do it.
Okay, so Chris has asked, how do you differentiate between tension and suspense?
You don't. It's the tension that builds the suspense. So if you're aware that you need to put an element of suspense in your story, you've got it. That's it. That's again different strokes for different book folks, different things for different genres. So, you know, a lot of genres lend themselves perfectly to suspense, you know, to those moments. Quieter genres aren't going to necessarily look for, you know, big moments of suspense. But it is a suspense. If you're thinking what's going to happen, if you're thinking who's
Yeah,
stolen the begonia, that is
it's
suspense.
reader suspense, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, and sorry, my mind was immediately cast back to the book I've just finished, in which there is a moment where the two main characters are there, and you just think you're willing something to happen. It's a very gentle book, but you're willing
Yeah.
something to happen, and the suspense is almost unbearable. Um,
You hope it lasts.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
There are quite a few questions about this being available later. Someone said, Eclipse said, I can't write fast enough. Yes, don't worry. We post all of these sessions to our YouTube channel. So prowritingaid.tv on YouTube is our channel. You will find all the recordings of Sally's sessions. Sal, I think you even put some on your site.
They all go on my video channel as well. So
So
that
you look,
would be
yeah,
lovely if you come to my video channel.
yes.
Which you can get to through my website.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, you asked which book was I reading. I was reading A Month in the Country, which was like, yeah, it's a lovely short book. Really, really good. Okay, let's carry on back in the questions. So Tom said, someone told me tension is created by the fight between a main character or all characters between their inner morality or desire and their outer
Yeah,
goal.
person against self. Absolutely. Yeah. It's caused by anything can cause tension, you know. I mean, you can have it really dead bleeding obvious. You can have a husband and wife divorcing. You can have children against their parents. You can, I mean, how, you know, if you've got a quest book, then you've got person against dragon, you know. It's but absolutely what you just said. Yes,
Yeah.
that is, but it's not the way you have to do it. That will create tension for sure, but you don't have to do it that way. There's so many different ways.
Can I just remind people?
You'll see all the ways they've done it in there.
Sorry, Sal, I kind of cut
Yes.
across you then, but I just wanted to say, if you have a question that you want me to ask Sally, please put it in Q&A. Fine if you just want to put it to general to everybody in chat, absolutely no problem. But I can't see everything there, so please keep posting them into Q&A. And speaking of that, Therese asked, and this is I don't know, Sal, I know you don't really work on children's books, but Teresa said, I've heard it said that in a children's book that there should be one conflict. However, in my story, I have several areas of tension with the characters still needing one theme. Is this suggested?
So, I don't know about children's book. I can try and answer it the only way I know how, which is, so first of all, I've said this before, I know how much I can't do children's by reading children's books to my daughter when she was little and thinking I would have, you know, I would have thought this was absolutely rubbish. I'm the person who would have said, we're going on a bear hunt is a stupid book. So I cannot do children's. But
I'm writing to Michael Rosen right now.
don't tell him. So but I think if you have got children, which I suspect you have, if you're writing children's literature, think my advice would be, and I must stress, I cannot stress strongly enough, this might not be the correct advice, check what I just said, but I would think about what your child could deal with at the age you're aiming for. So with my daughter, I had books that I loved from my childhood that I tried to read to her too early and she just wasn't interested in. But when she got old enough to be able to do, and I'm not talking about complex stuff, but you know, things that I tried at 5, worked when she was 6. So this is, I think, your best guideline, and I could be, could my son or daughter absorb that at the age group I'm aiming for?
Yeah.
Or could their friends absorb it? That's the only advice I can give. And I'm so sorry. I'm sure there's much better advice than that. But kids love tension. Oh my God, kids love tension. And you know, when I started reading fairy tales and stuff, to my daughter. I had completely forgotten how bloodthirsty they are and how gruesome and how, I mean, people chopping heads off things and just, so, you know, kids have got no problem attention. They love it. That's what they want. And then they want you to read it to them again and again and again, even though they know what happens. They want that tension over and over again. So I'm sorry if that wasn't a tremendously helpful answer. I do apologize, but that would be how I would try and approach it. Think of your reader, which is what I always say, right? Think of your reader.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sal. Okay, Harry's asked, how do you manage the volume of tension, the number of twists? It seems that a surfeit can be as off-putting as the absence of these things. And I think that's a real thing here, isn't it? It's the balance. It's the recognition and the balance of getting it right. And one of the things you started off with, Sal, was talking about using beta readers and using your friends and family, but those that are going to give you an honest and accurate answer.
And it's absolutely, and it's what I was saying just a while ago about breathers. You know, you can't have it all the time. I think I did something like this. You can't just have it constantly coming at you. It's relentless then. People only go, oh, I didn't see that coming, if they really didn't see it coming. And if it's constant, then they will see it coming. If you watch that back, it might make sense.
Is it possible to have too much tension?
Yes, actually, I think it is. I think that's another reason that you need breathers. You don't want it to be overwhelming. And your reader doesn't want to be overwhelmed. Your reader wants to be excited and enticed. Just made that up. So what they don't want is to be sort of beleaguered with the story. You know, they don't want to be sort of pummeled by the story. They want moments of quiet and moments of peace and moments to just enjoy what's happening and take in what's happening. Because if you're going full tilt all the way, they're going to be like holding on, trying to not fall off. So you want to yes, the answer is yes. There can be too much tension.
Again, it's the balance one, and it's interesting because quite a few questions are asking around, a formula. So, is there a generic formula to consistently write tension in a story? Is one question we've had, and would you say there is a ratio of the active cliffhanger moments versus the calm ones in fantasy novels, for example? But there are Sam, over to you.
Sorry, you were probably going to say exactly what I'm going to say, which is if you're writing fantasy, it's because you love fantasy, right? So if you love fantasy, you know perfectly well how it works. You know, you have moments of quiet when they realize that their uncle's been against them all the time and they run away and it's not very exciting. And, you know, or the dragon is actually nice or whatever. And then you have these big moments and then it goes quiet and then you have a twist and then it's quieter. You know, if you're a reader of the genre you're writing in, which I can almost guarantee you will be, then you instinctively kind of know how this works, right? Now, if you're writing domestic noir, you know there's not going to be a dragon anytime soon. So you're going to have to, think of, a sort of typical domestic noir kind of thing would be, it's the police have given up, they've gone home, it's looking hopeless, they think it was an accident, and then you just go and put something away and you notice something at the back of a cupboard and it's the thing, and that's tension, and you end your chapter there and it's and then it picks up again. So everyone knows their own rules. Everyone knows the rules of their genre. And if you stick to your guts and stick to that, you'll be fine. Honestly, I don't want this to be overcomplicated. It's a very important thing, but I think just being aware of it, it's just about what happens next. That's all it is. It's keeping your reader thinking what happens next. That's literally it. We could have done this in 2 minutes. Tom could have said to me, what's tension? And I could have said, it's what happens next. And then
good night.
We could have said good night. It's do not overcomplicate it, please, for yourselves. I mean, don't stress about it. Don't worry too much about it.
Yes,
That's
that's a really good point, Sal, because I think, in these sessions with, I mean, you're the expert. It's about giving advice, but I think what am I trying to say? It's like when I'm demonstrating Pro Writing Aid to some of our users, it's a tool to use and
yeah,
it's guidance, but well, always be thinking of your reader. You know
yeah,
what your readers need.
yeah,
And you know how you want to keep them turning those pages.
yeah.
So
That's
when we're
it.
talking
That's
about attention, I mean, yeah, that's
And with the things we've talked about, you will keep them turning the pages. But there's also, I hope people have been throwing up all sorts of other ideas, that I'm sure they have. Can I just say something? It's got nothing to do with books. Um, and I just want to mention this. I am, of course, aware that I have got a wandering eye. I don't mean in the sense of, well, hey, Tom. I mean in a literal sense, my eye wanders. And I uh the tireder I get, the more the day goes on, the harder it is for me to pull it in. And I know it can be a bit distracting, and I'm sorry, but there you go. I can do it if I really concentrate. But I just sort of want to acknowledge that because it can be sort of the elephant with a wandering eye in the room. But
so I don't think I'd ever notice. I honestly don't think I'd ever.
joking. Sometimes it's looking out the window while I'm talking to you.
Okay, so we've got another kind of 4 or 5 minutes or so. We've got a couple more questions to dive into. Linda asks, does foreshadowing offer tension?
Yes, of course. Absolutely perfect. Why didn't we talk about that before? Thank you. Of
We
course
put
it
that on the
does.
list.
I mean, you've got, of course, foreshadowing with a gentle touch, obviously.
Mm,
Um, but yes, naturally it does. And also, red herrings. Also, there's 1,000 ways of doing it.
yeah. Thanks, Sal. Taz, is there a way to moderately spread tension on pages? What do you recommend? Moderately spread tension.
See, thank you for that question, and it's very valid. But that's exactly what I was just talking about. If you start stressing about it like that, you'll
Yes.
jam yourself up. It's
Yes.
very good that you're thinking like that, but at the same time, you will jam yourself up. What you have to do is write your first draft, write your second draft, even. Get the story out, get it all in place, work on your characterization, work on your plot, work on your pacing, work on your structure, work on your dialogue, all of these things. But if something's still not working, and and people always do know in their own books, usually if something's not quite working, it is probably the tension. And that is probably that it's just not got that, it's just not pulling your readers through. So please, please don't start worrying too much about page ratios and stuff like that. I'm not dismissing your question. It's a very valid question, but you shouldn't have to worry about that. What you should be worrying about is am I engaging my reader enough that they want to keep reading? That's all you have to worry about, really, truly.
This is
Uh,
interesting. Sorry, Sal, go on.
Well, I just don't want people to start really
Yeah,
stressing about it. That's all.
and I'd be interested to know how people have overcome this because we do get this, questions like this a lot on events we run where um writers are looking for formulae to follow.
Mm.
And part of it is about just having that. Well, Sally, you describe it best when you say, that china, you tap it with a
Yeah,
and
that's
you
right.
hear the ting. Um, it rings true, and that's about a bit about trusting your gut, right? As a reader, we're all
It's
readers, so
but it's absolutely about trusting your gut. And this is why I say to authors that I work with, just because I tell you to do it, doesn't mean you have to do it. If
yeah,
I'm telling you to do something and you're not hearing that ting, don't do it. But I know that the authors usually know, oh, there's that part that's not really working. I'll just gloss over that. Maybe they won't notice. It's just a page. But you know perfectly well the bits in your own book that aren't working. It's just being honest with yourself, listening to that. And you just go over that bit and over it and over it until you think, oh, now it is working. Yeah. And that's a wonderful feeling when you get it right.
Yes.
Worth
Yeah.
all the work.
Right. I've got a question from Brian. Brian, thanks for joining. Brian asks, is it possible to deploy dramatic irony as a suspense tool with a non-omniscient narrator? Sorry, with a or if told from a third person limited point of view.
Now, this is the point in today's session. And again, I don't mean to diss your question at all. It's a good question. But there's always a point in one of these sessions where I say, yes, but the way to do it is just to do. You've got to make it work. You as an author have got to make that work. And if you do, then it would be very, very good. So yes. And I'm sorry I can't offer more than that. But the answer is yes. But it's in your hands to pull that off.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I think we're doing really well in getting through. There's some great comments as well. So I love Jonathan's comment in chat. He talks about detentions and getting tension. Sorry, I completely pulled me off track there. Harry, in presenting a reversal, is there a kind of language that is most effective in building surprise?
No, because it's so dependent on the genre you're writing in.
Yeah, right.
You know, Jane Austen never said, Jesus Christ, let's get out of here. No, she didn't. Obviously, if you're writing a high octane book, a high octane dialogue is going to work well for you. What is important is, no, you see, again, I don't want to jam you up. I don't want you to overthink this. There isn't, if write your book, write your first draft, get it out to your beaters. If they're good beaters and they're honest with you, they'll say your dialogue's not quite working yet, or whatever they will say.
Yeah.
And what you have to look out for with dialogue really is you can change a lot of the impact of dialogue by getting the layout right, by making it very clear who's saying what, because that's not always true. And I once saw a wonderful cliffhanger, and I've forgotten the book now, where a chapter ended with a sentence and you didn't know who'd said it. And it was really important. And then that was end of part 1 of the book. And then it went on to part 2 of the book. And you still didn't find out for ages. And I cannot remember the book. Someone here might know it. So I know that's not exactly what you're asking, but
yeah, but it's relevant.
Dialogue, it can be very, very useful, yes, but it's got to fit. It's got to fit. I could be wrong about Jane Austen. Maybe she did. I don't know. But I fear that she did not.
No comments about that in the chat, not from me. So we need to wind up really. And I just wanted to ask, is there anything else that we talked about this earlier in the week. Is there anything else that you wanted to say on the subject before we close? I think we've covered most things.
I just want to reiterate that please don't, I know we've done a whole session on it, but please don't sort of overanalyze it and get too stressed about it. A lot of this you'll be doing naturally, you will. And I think just being if you're getting feedback that people aren't really gripped, that's what it is. It's tension. And for all I know, if you search online, you'll find a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I know I'm the best. It's true. But, there are other people out there who have opinions, apparently.
That was British sarcasm.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, everybody.
I just want to point that out.
I don't really think I'm the best. That's British.
You are, though. I do.
Well, obviously. One thing, though, that I do want to make very clear before you all stress is that one thing I have learned in the many, many, many years I have been doing this is that writers can get better, which I didn't realize when I started this. I thought people, oh, this is terrible. She can't write. It's, and then they'd come back with the next draft and I would think, oh my God, this is really so much better. And then when we'd cleared up sort of all the little things and went into deeper things, again, come back better, come back better. And I find these with the people that I mentor sort of through the writing of a book, I am constantly so surprised at how much better authors can get all the time. And, I've got one mentee at the moment who's just blowing me away because each session she just comes back better and better and better. If you're watching, you know who you are. So it's never too late to pick things up, but it happens naturally, really. It happens over time. It happens, and if you read a lot, if you're writing a book, I think you will find that you're reading a book and you'll go, huh, okay, I see how you did that. That's good. And gradually, especially if you're getting feedback, well, not even often that gradually, you just get better and better. And often it's because people haven't told you you're doing that wrong, or here's how to do that right. And so many authors just go, oh, no one's ever said that before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take great heart that you will get better. You always will get better. And even if you've had 10 books published, you'll still get better. That's what authors do. They get better all the time.
That's a lovely point to end on. So I'm going to add a couple of things there. One is coming back to that point about the importance of having people around you, whether that is a coach or an editor or beta readers who you can involve and from an early stage in the process. Sorry, excuse me. I'm also going to actually, Sal, you mentioned this earlier in the week, and I completely overlooked this as something you offer. And I'm going to post it here because I think it's so relevant. So I posted it in chat to everybody. That is Sally's mentoring page. She doesn't like promoting herself, so I'm going to do it for her because she's bloody awesome. But take a look at what Sally does. Yeah, I don't need to say anything else, but take a look. She's got some wonderful comments from some people she's worked with on there. Right, we need to bring it to a close. I just wanted to say a big thank you, as usual, to everybody giving up their time to join us. We really appreciate it. Thank you ever so much for everyone who's taken part in the chat and submitted questions. I'm sorry there are a few we haven't been able to get to. I have to admit, if they're not on topic for the topic we're covering that particular session, we don't always have time to get to them, so apologies for that. But thank you for giving up your time. Sal, anything from you to end?
No, I've gone so quickly tonight. It's been absolutely brilliant, and it's always just such a joy to do these. Thank you so much to everyone for coming, and really look forward to seeing you next time. And if there are questions, do send them in. We'll always try and get them.
And don't forget Story Garden and Fantasy Week. Right, we'll see you in a month, everybody. Take care.
Bye all.
Bye all.